So today's topic is computational analysis of music. Now, through this session, mainly I have three objectives. That is to give an introduction to the field of computational musicology, a rather young research area, which is yet to be explored further, and to provide information that can be useful even for musically non-trained people as a first stepping stone for research in this area. And third one is to clear a misconception among some aspiring researchers about this area of research. And I will start from that. That is the third objective first. Actually, I included this objective because of my some personal experience. Because after my PhD, some people contacted me regarding research work in this area. And they were very enthusiastic about doing research, but they asked me a question. Sir, have you learned Carnatic music before doing this research? And I said, yes, I'm still learning. Then their enthusiasm went away because they were not trained in music. But my answer to their doubt is that there is no need to be a musician or a singer to do research in this area. That's the first thing. Definitely, you have to know some music theory, but it is pure mathematics. Anyone with a mathematical background can learn and acquire expertise in that area, music theory. There is no need to be a musician or singer or something like that. Okay, let me clear that first. Then, from a computer science point of view, what is music? Or from a physicist point of view, what is music? Basically, music is sound. It is a form of energy, definitely a physical quantity. But not every sound is music. But every music is definitely sound. So what makes music different from sound or normal sound? It is the intrinsic musical attributes of a music wave that differentiates it from other sound waves. So musicology is a scientific area which focuses on the scientific studies of the intrinsic attributes of music. It takes contribution from both music theory and physics. Now, regarding computational musicology, any physical quantity can be analyzed with the help of computational tools. So is music. So a formal definition of computational musicology may be given as it is an interdisciplinary research area focusing on the investigation of musicological questions with computational methods. Definitely it takes contribution from, whereas musicology takes contribution from physics and musicology, we bring computer science into that. Okay, then it becomes computational musicology. Now, first of all, you have to know what is going on behind every tune of a song which you hear. Everybody loves music, but I think not much people are thinking about the intricacies behind the tune which attracts you very much. So definitely any musical creation in this world is formed through musical notes. And it is called, normally they are called Saptaswarangal. That is Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, and Ni, which we denote by S, R, G, M, P, D, and N. So these seven notes are the alphabets when we consider music as a language. Okay. Then what's the grammar? Definitely there should be a grammar for any language. The grammar is the rules for the combination of notes. Not every combination is permissible according to music theory. There are certain rules for the combination of notes. So those rules constitute the grammar for music. So the alphabets are the musical notes and the grammar is a set of rules for the combination of notes. Then what's the result? Normally in language we make sentences, okay? And through that sentences we make paragraphs and so on. Here, the result is combination of notes produces scales or ragas, which form the basis for any music creation. Now, from a computer scientist point of view, we need data, that is, features or information from the input we process. Okay. So physically, music is a sound wave with certain attributes. Any wave has a wavelength, it has a frequency, amplitude, time period, etc. So these are the data associated with any music input, which are to be extracted by computational tools and processed. These same attributes are also used in NLP, natural language processing, speech recognition, and various other areas. Then for computational analysis of music, these features extracted from, that is the wavelength or frequency or amplitude, something like that. When these features are extracted from musical data, further they should be interpreted according to music theory. Then only you will get musical information, which will be present only in musical signals and not in other sound signals. Okay. Now, of the attributes of a music wave, which I already mentioned, wavelength, amplitude, frequency, and all those things, the most useful information is frequency for computational analysis. Okay. So in musical terms, frequency is referred to by another name. It is called pitch. Okay. We normally hear that he is singing in pitch, he is singing out of pitch, and all those things. This is simply frequency. Okay. Higher the frequency, higher the pitch. Then does every frequency correspond to a pitch? Definitely no. Only certain frequencies are considered as a pitch. So what's the reason for that? That's because only certain frequencies or their combinations produce a soothing effect to the human ear. That is human or any animal or anything. It only certain frequencies and their combinations create a soothing effect, or they are pleasant to listen to. And only those frequencies are classified as musical pitch. Okay. Others, or the unpleasant, or which causes uneasiness to the listeners, those are classified as non-musical sound or noise. Now, our task as computer scientists is to extract the pitch from raw audio data, raw audio input file, okay, which may contain from real time. If it is a real time audio, then it will contain a lot of noise. So one of the important research area in computational musicology is the extraction of pitch from raw audio input containing both pitch as well as noise. Okay. Then in the study of frequencies or pitch, you have to know something about the human perception of pitch. It's a very important concept in the study of frequencies of musical scales. Now, humans differentiate between pitch very easily. A person without any training in music can easily say that whether another person is singing right or not. Okay, because if it is singing in pitch, definitely it will soothe the listener. Okay, so a human perception of pitch is very, very accurate. So how is it done? How is it done in our ear and by our brain? That's by the vibrations of which is caused by the sound waves there is a membrane called basilar membrane in our inner ear. So different frequencies of sound cause different regions of the basilar membrane to vibrate. That's the important point. So by this, the brain discriminates between various frequencies because various areas are vibrating in response to various frequencies. So if two frequencies are very close, then they will cause an overlapping vibration and it will definitely be out of pitch. Okay. In such case, the frequencies cannot be distinguished as separate frequencies. Instead, an average frequencies will be heard by the listener. For example, if the two frequencies are 440 hertz and 450 hertz, then both 440 and 450 will not be heard. What we hear will be its average for about 445 hertz, which will definitely cause an uneasiness. So when two frequencies are close enough to cause this uneasiness, then they are said to be within a critical band on the basilar membrane. And that roughness or uneasiness is called dissonance. So if the lower frequency is kept at 440 and the higher one is raised slowly, then there will come a point where the two frequencies are still indistinguishable and there is just a roughness to the total sound. That is the limit where the dissonance prevails. After that, the dissonance will decrease. So dissonance continues until the higher frequency becomes distinguishable from the lower. Then after that, if the higher frequency is raised further, then the dissonance begins to get reduced and the roughness decreases. So the point here is two frequencies should be separated by a distance. It's separated by some value. They should not be neighbors or they should not be adjacent values. That will definitely create, if they are close enough, then definitely they will cause roughness or dissonance. So the consonance is the opposite of dissonance. That is, consonance means pleasant sounding combination of frequencies. It is caused by distinguishable frequencies. So musical notes are having the property of consonance. That's why there are a certain set of what is called musical notes. There are not infinite number of musical notes. There is a definite set of musical notes because they only have this property. So we can hear excellent consonants when the frequencies are multiples of each other. Okay. If 440 hertz is combined with, hertz is the unit of frequency, okay. If 440 hertz is combined with 880, the multiple of 440, then we can hear excellent consonants. That is true in the case of 3 into 440 as well. Okay. Why this happens? Because every crest of the sound wave corresponding to 440 hertz will be in step with every other crest of the sound wave. That is, they align with each other. That is the reason behind this consonance. So doubling the frequency of one note or one tone always produces a second tone that sounds good when played with the first. Okay, this interval between these two frequencies, that is that 440 and 880, or from 880 to its multiples, that interval is called a diapason. So this feature has been used without knowing its scientific or without any scientific study. All the musical systems in around the world has been following this tradition. That is, they are fixing one frequency. They call it by pitch, and they are taking it as the first note. Then the last note in that octave will be the multiple of the first note. So naturally, the whole thing becomes a consonant one. Okay. So this feature has been used in all musical systems to build musical scales by using an arbitrary frequency and another frequency exactly one diapason higher as the first and last notes in the musical scale. I have already told you there are 7 basic notes, which of course denoted by different letters, different notations in different system of music. But actually the frequencies are the same. In Indian music, they are denoted by sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni. In Western notation, they are called C, D, E, F. It's do, re, mi, fa, so. That's how they call it. Our sa is their do. Okay. So actually the frequencies are the same. So sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni is in Western notation it is C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now there is another concept of an octave. Okay. Octave means, as I already told you, one tone and it's double. That creates an octave. All the other notes come in between this first note and the last note. Between those notes comes all the other notes. So combining all those notes together, we take them as an octave. Then Definitely there are higher octaves and lower octave. Normally the frequency of a singer or the pitch of a singer is defined in the middle octave. Okay. Then he will go to the upper octave, he will come down to the lower octave. So normally a human or a vocalist has 3 octaves: lower octave, middle octave, and upper octave. Then what's the difference between these octaves? It is simply the multiple of the corresponding frequencies in one octave. So for example, here, if this is 100 hertz, then this will be 200 hertz. So the sa in the middle octave, if it is 100 hertz, then it will be 200 hertz in the upper octave. Similarly, if R is 107, then it will be 214, the R in the upper octave. Similarly, in the lower octave, it will be half. If it is 100, it will be 50, like that. Okay. So the figure given in the lower portion is that of a keyboard. So in a keyboard, it is denoted by C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Those are white keys, and there are some black keys in the upper portion, which I will explain later. Now, even though we are saying that there is Saptaswara or 7 notes, actually that is not the case. There are variations for each of those notes. This S and P, that is Sa and Pa are fixed. Remaining R, G, that is Re, Ga, Ma, Dha, Ni. These 5 notes have 2 variations each. That is R1, R2, and G2, G3. It is not G1, G2, but it is G2, G3. I will tell you the reason later. Then M1, M2, D1, D2, N2, and N3. Again, then there is no N1 and N2. There is N1, but I will tell you about it later. For now, take it as G2, G3, N2, N3, not G1, G2, and N1, N2. So there are 10 notes. Together with Sa and Pa, there are a total of 12 notes. Okay, which I have given here. The corresponding Western notations are C, C sharp. C sharp corresponds to R1. D corresponds to R2. D sharp corresponds to G2, and so on. Okay, C is C sharp, D sharp, E. There is no E sharp, but there is F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, and B. Now the permutations and combinations of these notes produces all the music in the world. Okay. In Western music, the combinations of these notes are called scales, and in Indian music, I think I have already mentioned it. In Indian music, it is called ragas. Now, these are the different variations I have already mentioned. Now, here you can see that along with R2, another name is given, G1 there. That is why it is denoted as G2 and G3. I have already mentioned that there is no G1, there is G1, but normally we say that yes, R1, R2, G2, and G3. That's because G1 is another name for R2, and R3 is another name for G2. That is because there are only 12 positions or 12 frequencies are there, but we can use those frequencies as 16 frequencies if we give another name to these notes. Because if we use the R1 and R2, then there is a rule that no 2 R's can come in the same raga or in the same scale. So we cannot use R2 along with R1. Okay. So we are just giving it another name, G1, and we are using it along with R1. Then it is permissible. It becomes permissible. R1, G1. But actually the value is the same. The frequency is the same. It is the frequency of R2. So we are combining it with R1 using the name G1. And the reason for that is both R1 and R2 are not permissible in the same scale or raga. Similarly, in the case of G2, we are giving another name R3. That is the same case in case of D2, we are giving another name N1. For N2, we are giving name D3. So we get 16 notes. 16 permissible notes, but only 12 frequencies. Okay. That is only a simple technique for getting additional notes for creating extra scales or ragas. Now, before coming to this two columns, we have to look into another concept. That is of a tonic frequency or a bass frequency. Now, Indian music uses the concept of a bass frequency, or we call it Adhara Shruti in Indian music. In Carnatic as well as in Hindustani music, it is called Adhara Shruti. That is the basic note. So it is called the tonic frequency. So for computer studies, the identification of tonic is very important. It is the note C or Sa in the middle octave. I have already gone through the octaves. So you have seen a middle octave, lower octave, and upper octave. So the S or C in the middle octave is the Adhara Shruti or the tonic. Then all the other notes in that octave are derived from this basic note. Okay, there is a relationship between the bass frequency, and the all other notes in the same octave. Now, how will you represent computationally this relationship? Fortunately, there is a mathematical relationship between these notes, the notes in an octave and the corresponding S or C in the same octave. Okay, these there are some ratios. These ratios are called relative pitch ratios. So the frequency of any note in an octave will be the product of the bass frequency and the corresponding RPR value. Okay. So these are the relative pitch ratios. So if we take Sa as 1, then R1 will be 16 by 15, that is 1.07. So we get the frequency of R1 by multiplying the frequency of S by this value. Okay, this is decimal equivalent of these ratios. The last column depicts the decimal equivalent of these ratios. So if it is 100, if the frequency of S is 100, then what will be the value of R1? It will be 100 into 1.07, which is 107. It will be 1.13 into 100, 130, and like that. So this is how we obtain all the other notes from a basic note in an octave. So if a person is singing in pitch, or if he is singing perfectly, then his R1 will be the frequency of his R1 divided by the frequency of his tonic will give you this ratio. Okay, 1.07. Then only we can say that he is singing in pitch. Otherwise, he is singing out of pitch. Okay, that's the relation. So these ratios are very important for computational modeling. Now, there is an S dash. What is this? This is the C or S in the upper octave. Okay, which will be twice this S. That is, if it is 100, then it will be 200. So if it is 100, this is 107, 113, 120, and like that. It ends in the Sa of the next octave, which will be 200. The frequency will be 200. Then all the R1, R2, etc. of that octave will be obtained by multiplying the same ratios by the 200. Okay. This is how all the notes in an octave is obtained from the bass frequency, or the relationship between the bass frequency and the remaining notes in an octave. Now we come to the rules for combination of notes. Now the order of notes is generally S, R, G, M, P, D, N. That is Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni in an octave. Similarly, that is in the increasing order of frequency. Similarly, the reverse, that is Ni Tha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa, is also permissible. Now, for each note position, I have already mentioned that no two variations of the same note cannot be used. That's why we give R to another name G1. So for each note position, one of the possible form of a note is allowed. For example, at the position of R, R1, R2, or R3 may occur, but more than one variation of the same note is permitted. That's why we gave R to another name G1 and used along with R1. Okay. Also, these combinations are not permissible because, see, this is the increasing order of frequency. S, R1, R2, R3, M1, M2, D1, D2, D3. B comes in between. So R2 is given another name. So we cannot use R2 and G1 because they are the same. They are the same frequency. So we cannot use R2 and G1. We can use R2 and G2, R2 and G3. Along with R1, we can use G1, G2, and G3. With R2, we can use G2 and G3. With R3, you can use only G3 because G2 is same as R3 and G1 is behind R3. Okay, we cannot combine those two. Similarly, the same applies here in the case of D and N. So the permissible combinations have been highlighted here, which is R1, G1, R1, G2, R1, G3, R2, G2, R2, G3, and R3, G3. These are the non-permissible combinations. These three and these three. Okay. So through these combinations, we can generate 72 parent ragas in Carnatic music. Those ragas are called Melakarta ragas. Okay. They have all the 7 notes. Of course, the variations of different notes will be used. That's the only thing. For example, S, R1, G1, M1, D1, N1 is a probable combination. Okay. Then those 72 ragas are also called parent ragas or Janaka ragas. And all the other ragas are derived from these parent ragas by omitting certain notes. And for example, if you from the 7 notes, if you omit 2 notes, you will get a pentatonic scale having 5 notes. That is a child of that parent raga. Okay. Thus, it is mathematically it is possible to create, I think, around 30,000 ragas or so. But not such ragas are not being practiced. So only around 400 or something like that are really in practice. Okay, mathematically or theoretically, it is possible to create through these Janya ragas around 30,000 ragas. Now we come to the concept of raga. So what is a raga? I have already told you. Raga is formed by the combination of notes. So we can say that a raga is a melodic framework consisting of a collection of melodic phrases which are formed by combination of notes. All music creations are based on ragas. Generally, a raga will have a unique sequence of musical notes with increasing frequency called arohana and a decreasing frequency called avarohana. Okay. I will play the arohanam of one raga. You can listen to this. And the avaroham was Was it audible?
Hello? Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. So that was the arohana of Mohana Raga. Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da, Sa. It is a pentatonic scale having only 5 notes. Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Da. Okay. The last Sa was the Sa of the next octave. Okay. So a raga need not contain all 7 notes. Okay. Now there are also ragas which break this general rule. they are called Vakra ragas. Okay, for which the Arohana and Avarona patterns will have subsidiary ascents and descents. So here in the case of Mohanam, we heard Sa, Re, Ga, Pa, Dha, Sa. Okay. In the case of Vakra ragas, there will be subsidiary ascents and descents. I will play Vakra raga, the Arohana of and Avarona of a Vakra raga.
Sarigama pamadani sa.
Once again.
Sarigama pamadani sa.
So it goes like that. Sarigama Pama Dhanisa. So after going to Pa, it comes back to Ma. Then it again goes to Dha. So normally Ma comes behind Pa. So Sarigama Pama Dhanisa. It goes back to Ma and again it goes skipping Pa to Dha. Okay, that is Vakra. And its Avaronam is like that.
Sani sada nida pama gamare gari sa.
It is more Vakra because Sani Sadhani. After going to Ni, going down to Ni from Sa, again goes to Sa. Sani Sadhani. So that is the Vakra ragas, which is very difficult to model using computational tools, because for normal ragas, we can find ragas by the number of occurrences of a note. Okay. But in case of Vakra ragas, we have to include another dimension, that is time, into our study, because we have to not only find the occurrence of that note, but we have to also calculate at which time it occurred. Did it occur before Ma? Did the occurrence of Ma was before Pa or after that? Only by doing such a modeling, we can find the Vakra ragas, which offers immense scope for research. It remains an unsolved problem so far. Okay, the exact modeling of Vakra ragas because of the addition of the dimension of time. Okay. Now, for our study, we have to extract the fundamental frequency or the pitch. Okay. For that, we have to take into consideration the basic properties, some of the basic properties of musical instruments or human singers. That is, when a particular note is played on a musical instrument, there will always be additional tones produced at the same time. That's the frequency of the desired note. For example, the frequency of the note Sa, if it is 100, then there will definitely occur 200, 400, and all those things. Okay, the multiples of, simply by plucking the string, there occurs not only the actually our wanted frequency, but its multiples also. So the frequency of the desired note is known as the fundamental frequency, or it is called the pitch. Okay, which is caused by the first mode of vibration. But many higher modes of vibration will also always occur simultaneously. The frequencies of these higher modes are known as overtones. That is, if 100 is the fundamental frequency, then 200, 300, 400 are the overtones. So overtones are simple integer multiples of the fundamental frequency, and they are called harmonics. So if there is a 110, there will naturally be 210, 330, 440, etc. will all be present, although not all with the same intensity. Okay. The fundamental frequency becomes the first harmonic, the first overtone becomes the second harmonic, and so on. Now, a musical instrument's fundamental frequency and all of its harmonics, they together is called the sound spectrum of that instrument. Okay. Now, I have already mentioned that pitch corresponds to frequency. That is, frequency means the number of occurrences of a wave per second. That is the definition of frequency, and it is measured in hertz. Now, pitch, the sound has a property. They are periodic waves exhibiting a single repeated pattern of pressure variation. The sound is definitely caused by the pressure variation in the air. Okay. The spectrum of a truly periodic sound consists only of sine waves. That is the point very useful to us when we model, when we do computational modeling of these frequencies. That is, they can be obtained by a combination of sine waves. Okay. So that combination of sine waves, in that the first sine wave in the spectrum, and that its period frequency is called the fundamental frequency or pitch. So we can express a wave as a combination, as a sum of sine waves, and we can find the pitch of the first sine wave, and it will give us the frequency or the pitch of the first harmonic. And frequency is the inverse of the time period. A sine wave with a period of 0.5 second will have a frequency of 2 hertz, 1 by 0.5. Now this relationship between the frequency and the time period makes it possible to extract fundamental frequency from both the waveform and spectral representations of a sound signal using analytical techniques. We can use Fourier transform and autocorrelation. Such techniques can be used to extract the pitch. Now, a pitch detection algorithm takes a sound signal or a raw sound data as its input and determines the fundamental frequency of that signal. So it attempts to find the frequency that a human listener would agree to be the same pitch as the input signal. This frequency may not be perfectly steady. In real-time applications, there will be a lot of noises, and also there are limitations of the singers, which produces other notes in addition to the correct note. So, but our human listeners, normally our brain has a capacity to reject those unwanted noise or those extra tones, and we will locate a central pitch very easily. But that's not the case of a computer software. So the frequency may not be perfectly steady and may contain a lot of micro variations. So in real-time applications, such as live performances, the job of a PD algorithm is to ignore these micro variations and locate a central pitch. Now there are a lot of applications which correctly determines the pitch. That part actually remains a solved problem now. And many pitch detection algorithms grew out of speech recognition and speech synthesis research. Now, methods for detecting a fundamental pitch from musical signals normally include 2 steps. There is analysis to determine relevant spectral content of the periodicity, spectral content or the periodicity of the signal, and a decision criterion for determining the fundamental pitch. There should be a decision criteria to fix that this is the fundamental frequency. So there are 2 steps in pitch detection algorithms. Now, pitch detection methods generally fall into 5 categories. Frequency domain methods, example is fast Fourier transform. Autocorrelation method is there, in which a same wave is compared with delayed versions of itself, and we compute the peaks and the lower portions. Okay. Then there are some time domain methods. Adaptive filter methods are there. Then there is also some methods based on the models of human ear. That is, some methods, some PDs try to emulate human pitch perception mechanisms. I have already told you, human pitch perception is a complex phenomenon, which is yet to be fully understood. What makes it so complex? Because we can sense musical pitch even in the presence of noisy signals. We can follow several pitches simultaneously. Also, we can detect slight but expressive pitch deviations. So human pitch perception it also involved cognitive processing, subjective factors such as familiarity with the musical training, and all those things. All these qualities will not be applicable to software PDs. Okay. Due to these complexities, the computational requirements of pitch detection algorithms trying to emulate human pitch perception mechanisms are very high. That is not implemented in practical. Now we come to raga recognition. That is, the process of identifying the underlying scale or raga of a musical input data. After detecting all the notes, we have to find the raga behind it. That is by looking for the note, the most prominent notes. For example, the Mohana Raga, which I played earlier, it has S, R2, G3, Pa, and Dhatu. So if we feed a wave file contain Mohana Raga, then it will look for, the result will contain most probably the notes S, R2, G3, Pa, Dhatu, and Sa. Definitely then the Raga recognition software will predict that it is Mohana. Okay. So for that, many methods are there. And also that in all three steps, first we have to identify the base frequency, tonic detection, which I already mentioned that it has become a solved problem. And then note identification is there, which is also a solved problem now, and the raga prediction. Now, statistical approaches uses pitch count, that is the number of notes or the density of notes occurring. How many R2s are there? Which is the most occurring note? Is it R2, R1, or R3? If it is R2, then we fix it as R2. And likewise, G3 and Pa, Dhatu, and all the other notes. Okay, which is the most frequently occurring notes. That is what these programs are looking for. So there are some statistical approaches: pitch count, pitch density distributions, pitch class profiles, etc. All these things are more or less the similar techniques. Then there are some machine learning approaches, that is using artificial neural networks, self-organizing feature maps, and all those things. Now, pitch count or pitch detection algorithm, I have already mentioned that there are 12 note positions and 16 note names. So we are looking for the maximum number of occurrences of a note. Which is the most occurring note, then we fix it. So using the detected tonic and RPR values, the relative pitch ratio values we mentioned earlier, the ideal pitch values of all notes in 3 octaves. We have to look for the occurrence of a note in all 3 octaves, because a singer may sing in lower octave, higher octave, and the middle octave. So the software has to look for the occurrence of a particular note in all 3 octaves. Then the computed pitch values, that is the values computed by the software is compared to the ideal pitch values of the various notes in 3 octaves. And all the pitch values falling within a threshold of permitted variation from the ideal pitch. No software can accurately predict. So we have to give a range. That's a threshold value. That within that range, if a frequency comes, then we take it as that the occurrence of that note. Not exactly that value, but we are giving a range. So all the pitch values falling within a threshold of permitted variation from the ideal pitch of a note. Ideal pitch is the pitch value indicated by the relative pitch ratio. Then they are taken to be the presence of that particular note. Then the pitch counts are used to compute a pitch density distribution, which is a histogram. Then this is raga recognition using artificial neural networks. Here there is no what is employed is not a supervised learning, it is unsupervised learning. That is, we are providing all the detected pitch values, all the frequencies to an artificial neural network, which is called self-organizing feature map. What it does is that it clusters the input. The most frequently occurring inputs are clustering around or tuning around a particular note. So what we do is that we change the learning rule of the artificial neural network so that the weights going from the input to the winner neuron makes the winner neuron more strong. So naturally what happens is that all the 12 nodes are modeled in this artificial neural network, and we are providing all the frequencies to the neural network, and we are not giving any target or something like that. Just provides the input to the self-organizing feature maps. and it is a competitive learning. It employs competitive learning. So naturally, all the frequencies, the most frequently occurring frequencies, cluster around those nodes. Then the presence of a particular node is denoted by the density or the clustering of that frequencies around that particular node, using which we can predict the raga. It is not so efficient method compared to pitch density distributions. Now, I have already mentioned that the tonic detection or the note identification are all those things have already been completed, or we can say that they are solved problems. Now, what remains is the increasing the number of notes in raga recognition. I have mentioned here that there are 12 frequencies, but in music theory, it says that there are in between frequencies. Between these 12 frequencies, there are some intermediate frequencies as well, which are being practically used in Carnatic music, but they are given the same name as of these 12 notes. Some argue that they should be given separate name, and this 12 should be modified to 22. So what happens is that theoretically there is only 12, but practically there are 22 notes are being used, which have been given the name of these 12 notes itself. Okay, so that's an approximation. So there is a possibility of doing research by increasing the number of notes. That is, you have to incorporate 22 notes instead of the 12. That is a possibility. Then catchphrase identification. Catchphrase means there are some peculiar phrases or prayogas, which is called prayogas in Carnatic music and pakkad in Hindustani music, which are peculiar applications of certain notes in particular ragas. So if we can identify that particular phrase, then we can immediately say that it is that raga, because no other raga will have that particular phrase. Okay, that is the catchphrase identification. For that, we have to incorporate the dimension of time also. Okay. Then modeling gamagas. Gamaga means giving ornamentation, giving stress to a note. Not just a single frequency, but all the frequencies around that note the singer will oscillate between all the note frequencies around that note. No, he will not deviate too much, but he will give a stress that is called ornamentation or gamagas in Indian music. Most of the ragas are incomplete without these gamagas. So simply by counting the number of occurrences of a note does not actually model that raga. We have to incorporate these gamagas also into our study or in future studies, so that not a single value but a range of values will represent a note. Okay. And another thing is, I have already mentioned here that there are irregular or vakra ragas, the identification of which yet remains to be an unsolved problem. For that, we have to incorporate the occurrence, not only the occurrence of a note, but we have to find the time at which that occurrence, the time at which that note occurred. So we have to find the time also. These are the possible future directions in this area. There is immense scope for research in this area. Okay, I think I have gone through the main topics I plan to present. So these are the references. If you have any doubt, please ask me.